Turned
No.
on. You got turned on. There we
No.
go. Okay. Okay, welcome everybody. Today is July 8th, and we continue, and we will begin as usual with our 3-minute silent sitting period. Interesting. I'm looking at the Facebook page, still trying to figure out why I can't the link that was supposed to be on the Facebook page doesn't seem to be working. So I'm just trying to figure out. Well, we'll deal with that later. Okay, just to recap a little bit where we are. Here's the outline of section 4. We've done this articulating the great resolution. It's called Articulating the Inconceivable Acceptance of the Real Dharma. And as I mentioned before, this term, acceptance of the real Dharma is Saddharma, just like in the Saddharma Pundarika, the real Dharma of the White Lotus, or the true Dharma or genuine Dharma of the White Lotus. This is one of my little trivia side things. For some reason, everybody says the Lotus Sutra instead of the White Lotus Sutra. It's one of those little things that kind of irks me. The Pundarika is the name for the White Lotus. It's not the Red Lotus or some other lotus, so, which has a different name. Couldn't help but throw in a little pet peeve there. So articulating the great resolution was that acceptance of the real Dharma condensed all of the previous resolutions, her 10 proclamations and her 3 great resolutions. They all reduced down to the one great resolution, which is acceptance of the real Dharma, to accept the real Dharma. So this can also be called the great vow, the one great resolution. I think the Waymans call it the one great aspiration. So Pranidhana, it's D-H-A-N-A, P-R-A-N-I-D-H-A-N-A is the Sanskrit for it. Right, the Waymans call it aspirations. So we got that through, and again, this idea that all condenses down to acceptance of the real Dharma is the one great resolution, is again, in my view, the way the one vehicle, this acceptance of the real Dharma was already present in the Prajnaparamita Sutras. So this is accomplishing 2 things. It's acknowledging and incorporating this important idea from the Prajnaparamita Sutras, acceptance of the real Dharma, and it's giving that a one vehicle spin by saying it all condenses into this one resolution. That acceptance of the real Dharma is the one great resolution. So I see that as the one vehicle picking it up and turning what this phrase acceptance of the real Dharma is. And then we have section 2, which presents several metaphors and other examples, if we want to say call it examples, of this extensive and great meaning, or the vast meaning of acceptance of the real Dharma. And then the third one is articulating the great meaning, which is it's articulating the real Dharma, but it's adding a little bit of different slants to it, because it's more, it's focused more on our practice and Sangha relations of the great acceptance of the real Dharma. And then the 4th section is the concluding section of this part. And it's the Buddha affirms what Srimala said about great strength as a metaphor or symbol for the acceptance of the real Dharma. And then he adds a couple more metaphors, parables, examples, whatever we want to call them. So that's where we're at in terms of that framing of it. So we're in the second section, where so here it is. Section 4, we've gone through the first section and we've gone through articulating the vast meaning. Remember, this word vast relates to Vaipulya, which is the broad scope of the teaching. It's a meaning and a teaching which is the broadest. And so it's sort of this term vast meaning becomes a synonym for Mahayana, the great vehicle. It's great and it's vast. So Srimala then is inspired by the spirit of the Buddha to articulate further. The first articulation was the great cloud, acceptance as the great cloud. And I mentioned before my thoughts about how this is like recapitulating the creation of the universe. And in fact, it literally says in the first line of each of these, world honored one, it is also like at the time of the formation of the initial aeon. And so this time of the formation of the initial aeon is in Buddhist cosmology that was adopted and amended or edited by from the Hindu cosmology. The formation of the initial aeon refers both to the formation of the universe, but also the appearance of consciousness in the mind. So it has those two aspects to it. And I think that's to me, that's a point that we need to bear in mind when we hear modern science talk about the Big Bang and things like that, because it's as much a metaphor for the origin of consciousness as it is a metaphor for the origin of the universe. And I'm referring there specifically to what we call the Big Bang and what this calls the formation of the initial aeon. So the first one is it's as a great cloud. Now it's as great water. The world honored one, it's also like at the time of the formation of the initial aeon, and there was an accumulation of the great water, producing and giving birth to the storehouse of the great chilocosm, as well as the 40 billion classes of continents of every kind. So it is that the acceptance of the real Dharma produces and gives birth to the great vehicles, storehouse of immeasurable realms, to the power of spiritual fluency of every bodhisattva, to the hidden ease and glad rejoicing of all the mundane, and to the autonomy of the intention of all the mundane, as well as the ease and joy of the transmundane. From as long as the formation of the aeon, the root of heavenly beings, that's devas, and humans, though actually it has not yet been attained, in every case comes forth from the center. And then I take that center to be the center of the acceptance of the real Dharma, which is what the subject of this is all about. So I put that in brackets. Now again, this is, to me, the parallel is somewhat astonishing, that we go from the great cloud to the great water, that these kinds of spiritual intuitions have been basically adopted and accepted by science, in the sense of we go from a great cloud, the gas explosion that we're told of in the Big Bang, to the great waters. And here, what's called the great water is the great chilocosm, as well as the 40 billion classes of continents. That means the 40 billion classes of continents in every chilocosm. And I think what's going on is there's some way that number gets created. There are either 4 or 5 continents on every world, in every world system. So, but here, when we're talking about the great water, we're not talking about the water of the ocean. We're talking about the water of the cosmos. So to me, it's what relates to the galaxies. First, there's the expansion of the gas cloud, which is the great cloud, and then that cloud starts to condense into all the elements, and those elements start rotating around and condensing and become stars, and then those stars start creating more elements. So this to me is, it's amazing that it's following a progression from gas to the water to creating the material world, the continents. The great vehicle, storehouse of immeasurable realms, to the power of spiritual fluency. A lot of times the spiritual fluency is my own, a lot of times they'll say the power of spiritual force, or the power of spiritual power, or the supernatural. Sometimes the spiritual fluency is actually translated as supernatural power. Siddhi, this term siddhi means accomplishment. Riddhi, excuse me, my eyes weren't deceived me. The riddhi means accomplishment, or the spiritual aspect, and abhijna means the fluency. The jna at the end is the root, which is the same root as jhana and vijnana. It means to know, not knowing. But the abhi is like the abhi in Abhidharma. It means the full or complete knowing. And so that's what I translate as fluency, that complete knowing. That is the spiritual power of a bodhisattva. Then to the hidden ease and glad rejoicing of all the mundane, that means everything that's worldly, and to the autonomy of the intention of all the mundane, there's what we call in Christianity free will, right? And as well as the ease and joy of the transmundane, acknowledging that there's something not contained in what we call the mundane. So I like this hidden ease and glad rejoicing of all the mundane, because it focuses on the fact that this whole expansion of the acceptance of the real Dharma is there at the very beginning. It's not something added backwards into things or created separately. And it's hidden right there in everything that we call mundane, and it's hidden as ease and glad rejoicing. So that's like so that's the whole point of in our, as I see it, in our Zen practice, when we see this nirvana and samsara, and when we see afflictions and wisdom having the intersection, or the being two sides of the same coin, that's what this line to me is talking about. The hidden ease and glad rejoicing of all the mundane. It's also a reference to the Dharmakaya as not being separate from what we take as the physical reality of the universe. Then, as long as the formation of the aeon So this initial aeon is a formative aeon. Once it goes past the formative aeon, then it is the abiding or staying aeon, and that's what we're in right now. It's so after the billions of years of the formation of the universe, then there's the abiding aeon, where all the people have come to be in appearances, and so this has an interesting little clue thing here that is easy to pass over. From as long as the formation of the aeon, the root of heavenly beings and humans, though actually it has not yet been attained, in every case comes forth from the center. So the root of all devas and humans has existed from this beginning as long as the whole formation of the aeon. But of course, humans and heavenly beings weren't present at the formation of the aeon. We didn't get present until the very end of the formation of the aeon, going into the second abiding aeon. So that's why it says, though actually it has not yet been attained. So that's sort of a double meaning. It means as individuals, many heavenly beings and humans have not actually attained the root yet. But it also means that that root was not attained by the heavenly and human beings in the formation of the aeon, because they didn't even exist at that point. But when the root is attained, that root has been there all along from the formation. And in every case, it comes forth from the center of this acceptance of the real Dharma. Anybody want to make comments on that short section before we go to the next one?
I have a question, Gregory. I'm kind of following both, trying to see so I know at the beginning you said that you condensed certain parts and you put one before the other. Could you remind me about that in this section?
Right, and
the Weymouths have the teaching and scope of the great aspiration, as you said, they're calling it.
right.
But
So
what you
so they don't separate these paragraphs for some reason. So they say, in the same way, this embrace of the illustrious doctrine pours down countless maturations of merit and pours down countless knowledge jewels. Wait, no, that's where are we in? Right. So I don't know what this is part of the confusion because they're working from the Tibetan document.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that important. I've been able to follow.
We're at the top of page 70.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah.
So they have at the last line in page 69. For example, at the time of new differentiation of the worlds, there came a great cloud.
Right.
So they have that instead of at the time of the formation of the initial aeon.
Yeah.
So what they're doing, I don't know. Now again, here I don't know because I haven't seen the Tibetan. If this is a direct translation of the Tibetan, or if they're trying to make it English reader friendly by not referring to the initial aeon,
right,
or the initial kalpa, and just saying the differentiation of the worlds, using the word worlds instead of the initial aeon.
Right. Yeah, that's fine. I wanted to make sure that I was in the right place.
And And then they say, at the time of the new differentiation of the worlds, a great syllogism of worldly realms was the birthplace, and from that arose myriad sets of four continents of various shapes and colors, and tremendous numbers of lesser satellite continents.
Yeah.
But here, they don't mention the great water per se. They changed the great water to I don't even see any reference to water here. Oh, they say pours down. Pours down, they use, but it doesn't refer to water. So I don't know why they lost the great water. I mean, the great water phrase. Now, again, here they have, as I was saying about this word that I translate as spiritual fluency, they translate it as magical deeds of the Bodhisattva. So again, I think, and that's totally consistent with Tibetan Buddhism and the whole reference to the magical deeds of bodhisattvas, but I think more technically and more faithfully to the text, calling it the spiritual fluency or spiritual capability or spiritual power, in the sense not of being strong, but being able to ability. So now we go to the next one. So again, as I said, the condensation is happening. We go from the great cloud to the great water, and now the great earth. It's like the great, the acceptance of the real Dharma is like the great earth. I'm looking at my notes here to see if there's anything I forgot. Okay. So now, just to preview, we have two great earth metaphors back to back. The great earth support and the great earth's storehouse of jewels. So that you can see that's the great earth itself as the support for the acceptance of the real Dharma. And then the great earth as the storehouse of the jewels of acceptance of the great Dharma. It's also like the great earth supporting the four heavy burdens. What classes serve for the four? That could be what kinds are the four, what categories serve as the four. That which is first is the great ocean. That which is second are the various mountains. That which are third are the plants and trees. That which is fourth are the multitude of beings. So it is by acceptance of the real Dharma, good sons and good daughters establish a great earth for being able to bear the four kinds of heavy burdens. By the metaphor of that great earth, and it actually says the word metaphor, or you could call it image, symbol, or parable. By the metaphor of that great earth, what classes serve as the four? They are designated, one, the multitude of beings who, though separated from good virtuous friends, have not heard wrong Dharma and use the virtuous roots of humans and heavenly beings, and then are brought to maturity in it. Two, those who seek as a listener disciple, Shravaka, and are conferred the listener disciple vehicle. Three, those who seek as causally awakened ones, Pratyeka Buddha, and are conferred the causally awakened vehicle. And those who seek as one of the great vehicle and are conferred the use of the great vehicle. And of course, here that means the bodhisattvas, although it doesn't name them as the bodhisattvas. This is because we're seeing here the inherent ambiguity between the use of the term great vehicle and the use of the term one vehicle. And so it's focusing here on the great vehicle, but it doesn't want to rule out the one vehicle quite yet. So it's not focusing on the bodhisattvas as the third vehicle. Okay, this is called acceptance of the real Dharma, for good sons and good daughters to set up a great earth fit for being able to bear the four kinds of heavy burdens. World-honored one, so it is that by acceptance of the real Dharma, good sons and good daughters establish a great earth, fit for being able to bear the four kinds of heavy burdens, and universally for the multitude of beings, they function as unsolicited friends with great compassion. Mahakaruna, to console the multitude of beings with sympathy, to serve as Dharma mothers of the world. So there, we'll get back to it, but there again is the integral feminine symbology that.
Why are they called great burden? I mean, I find very interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay, so yeah, it is fascinating. It's because the bodhisattva takes on saving all sentient beings as if it was a great burden, shouldering it no matter what the weight of it is, and that's how I see it. If someone else sees it differently, go ahead and speak up. So the first metaphor.
one.
Yeah, so we start with the first one, which is the physical reality. Out of the great waters comes the great ocean. Out of the great ocean, the mountains arise. On the mountains, the plants and trees appear. And among the plants and trees on the mountain risen out of the ocean is the multitude of beings. Now, isn't that exactly how they talk about the formation of the earth at one time being covered in oceans, mountains, the waters receding, mountains appearing, plants and trees, and then the being. So this is amazing to me that this is, the second century of the modern era when this is being written like this. So now that we've got that as the metaphor, now we switch to these four classes of people as related to all of those. So the whole multitude of beings is related to the great ocean. The Shravakas are related to the mountains. The Pratyeka Buddhas are related to the plants and trees, and the Bodhisattvas and followers of the great vehicle are related to all the beings on the earth. And those two are perceived as the burdens of those who would accept the real Dharma, because it means relating to and aiding and teaching and leading all these people. Now I'm going to go back and remind us of the thing that we looked at earlier. I think Daniel had raised this question. Where is my... This is that three-story pagoda from the book The Way to Buddhahood by Venerable Yin Sun. And so the screen that showed the list of okay, yeah. So the it said 4 burdens, but what's going on there is that first burden, the multitude of beings, who, though separated from good virtuous friends, that's the Kalyana Mitra, have not heard, even though they don't have good friends to tell them the real Dharma, the true Dharma, the genuine Dharma, they haven't been led astray by listening to the wrong Dharma. And in every case, they have virtuous roots of humans and heavenly beings, and then are brought to maturity. So the idea that these are humans and heavenly beings, that makes them the two vehicles that add up to the five vehicles when you add the Prachekas, Buddhas, the Shravakas, and the Bodhisattvas as the three vehicles. So those three vehicles plus humans and devas make up the five vehicles. And so this teaching of this Dharma that is common to the five vehicles, is the basic fundamental Dharma of the Buddha that's related to good moral precepts. Well, it's the not doing wrongdoing, doing good, and awakening all beings with a clear mind. That's what this Dharma common to the five vehicles is all about. And so it includes the Buddha's teaching of karma, that karma, and it includes the teachings related to karma being the basis for having a basis for the measurable virtuous merits and the measurable virtuous roots that will get a person reborn in the human realm, in a good position in the human realm or in a deva realm. So when Zongmi was in China, relating this teaching to China in his treatise on the origin of the human, he included this teaching of the Dharma of the devas and humans as the as this common to the five vehicles as well, and that this was something that all Buddhists can relate to, although it's not the specific teaching. So then when he goes, going back to the sutra, it names the next three vehicles: those who seek as a listener-disciple and are conferred the listener-disciple vehicle, those who seek as the causally awakened one, Pratyeka Buddha, and are conferred the causally awakened vehicle, and those who seek as one of the great vehicle, the Mahayana, and are conferred the use of the Mahayana. So that's the Dharmas common to the three vehicles. Now, in this section, Dharma common to the three vehicles, you can also then tease out, as if it was three levels of this floor, maybe a floor level and a mezzanine level and an upper level. You could separate the three vehicles, the teachings that are specific to one vehicle or the other. But this is indicating the important point that this is there's the Dharma that's common to all the three vehicles, and those are again the more specific teachings that are inclusive, that being the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, as the primary Dharma that's related to common to all the three vehicles. Then, of course, when you got to the Bodhisattva vehicle, they de-emphasized the Eightfold Path and emphasized the Paramita path, the six Paramitas. But that's different. That's the distinguishing feature of the Bodhisattva vehicle, not the feature that's common to all the vehicles. And then above that is looking downward in that sense of the one great vehicle that rests on all the lower vehicles. So that again is part of going back to this initial metaphor that what's common to the five vehicles is what rises out of the ocean as the mountain. Well, is the ocean. And then what rises out of the ocean are the mountain, the vegetation, and the beings, which is common to the three vehicles. This is the first point where this important, fun word, Kalyana Mitra, appears. That the multitude of beings, even though they don't have good friends, they still have not heard the wrong Dharma, and their virtuous roots are enough to bring them to maturity in the Dharma. And that again is a one vehicle approach, that they are not, they're not unable to come to maturity in the Dharma just because they're not ordained or something. All lay people and devas can come to maturity in the Dharma. Also to point out, this is where the first use, I think this is the first use of this term, good sons and good daughters. Again, this sutra, I don't know how many other sutras, but very rare, this is, I think, one of the first sutras that includes the phrase good daughters. Most of the Prajnaparamita sutras only have good sons. And we know that in the transition from the Prajnaparamita with the Vimalakirti Sutra is where we started to get some more of the addressing the feminine, this patriarchal thing directly. Now, going to Wayman's, you'll see that every time it says good sons and good daughters, they write a good son of the family or a good daughter of the family. Again, that's another Tibetan thing that doesn't appear in either of the Chinese texts. As we know, the Gunabhadra's text, which this one comes from, was an earlier Sanskrit version, and the Bodhiruchi text came from the Ratnakutra, which was a later Sanskrit version. And the Tibetan also came from the Ratnakutra, but here's where you can see that the Tibetans always add of the family every time good son or good daughter is mentioned. The Waymans in their footnotes that I saw, they just take it as that's what it says because that's what the Tibetan says. But it doesn't, they don't explain why the Tibetans have it and the Chinese don't. So Kalyana Mitra, Mitra of course means friend, and Kalyana means beneficial. It's usually called good virtuous friends because Kalyana means beneficial virtue. Kalyana karma is beneficial karma, or translated as good karma, or good karma, or bright karma. So then we get down here though, that this being able to bear these four burdens is called acceptance of the real Dharma for good sons and good daughters to set up a great earth fit for being able to bear the four kinds of heavy burdens. So that's where it's saying that being a good son or good daughter of the real Dharma, of the Buddha or the Tathagatas, is empowering to set up the great earth fit for being able to bear the four kinds of heavy burden. So what is this great earth? Well, of course, it's us.
Gregory, here, I think I'm in the right place. Talking about the friendly, compassionate, giver of solace, merciful, and it's called World Mother of the Dharma.
Okay, that's the next paragraph. Yeah.
I see. Okay, sorry.
So then we go on to. So we've got the symbols for the four heavy burdens that the good son or good daughter bears the burdens of teaching these basically five vehicles, but grouped into four as four burdens by not separating the humans and devas. So it is that by acceptance of the real Dharma, good sons and good daughters. Now again, this good sons and good daughters, the importance of that term is it is an all-inclusive term. In the Prajnaparamita, good sons means ordained people. And that's why that's why it sometimes had of the family, meaning of the Buddha Sangha. But here, good sons and good daughters is all inclusive of all four of the wings of the Sangha, the male and female ordained bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, and then the lay people, upasaka and sakini, I don't know, the male and female lay people. So that's what this good sons and good daughters means. The bodhisattvas who are the lay people are included, along with the bodhisattvas who are the ordained, with the listener disciples who are ordained. That's something to remember every time this phrase "good sons and good daughters" comes up. It doesn't refer; it refers to all four of the Mahasangha, the Great Sangha. So they established the great earth for being able to bear the four kinds of heavy burdens, and universally for the multitude of beings, they function as unsolicited friends with great compassion to console the multitude of beings with sympathy, to serve as Dharma mothers of the world. So that's part of the feminine symbology, but it also refers to how a mother shoulders the burden of her children. Not even though it is a burden, it's not burden that is, usually it's something that's taken on willingly. Here the idea is that good sons and good daughters function as unsolicited friends. I like that phrase because it means I'm going to be your friend whether you like it or not. You know, you don't have to ask me to be your friend. I have friendliness towards everybody, and we have great compassion for everybody, and we will console all the beings with sympathy, because we are going to act like Dharma mothers of the world. We're gonna act like mothers caring for all the beings as if they were our own children. And it's interesting that this feminine Dharma mothers of the world is related to the great earth. So again, you have the great earth, Gaia.
Pachamama.
Right, yeah. Where does that term come from? That's
It's a
Aztec?
native South American Indian.
Okay. Probably with roots back to the Incas. Yeah.
Oh, sure, sure, sure.
Yeah. The Great Mother. So I thought this was very nice, that the metaphor for being a support for the great earth is being a Dharma mother of the world. So the phrase could be also as a world Dharma mother, or as world Dharma mothers. You know, it's the ambiguity of the possessive. So I have a Dharma mothers of the world. What did the Waymans have? Supports a burden greater than the earth's. And so I have
Supporters, yeah.
it doesn't say greater than the earth's, but this is a good son of the family or good daughter of the family who acts to add certain sentient beings to the vehicle. What is this? Okay, I'm off track. Oh, here we go. Good son of the family or good daughter of the family who embraces the illustrious doctrine, carries those
Right.
four great burdens greater than earth's. You see, I don't know where they get the greater than. I don't see it. I have the four great burdens of the earth, or the four kinds of heavy burdens. Carries an infinite burden, becomes for all sentient beings spontaneously friendly, compassionate, giver of solace, merciful, and is called world mother of the Dharma. So that's the ambiguity of when you have, where do you place the of? Literally, the phrase is in the order of world Dharma mother. So I take the world, the first world, as world apostrophe S, the world's Dharma mothers. And so to make it a little clearer, I say the Dharma mothers of the world. The Tibetans have, and Waymans have, world mother of the Dharma. So they take the world as the first term, but then they switch instead of saying Dharma mothers, they say mothers of the Dharma. So they say world mothers of the Dharma. You know, I don't know if there's a fundamental difference in that phrasing, but it makes more sense to me to say they are Dharma mothers of the world, in other words, for the whole world, rather than that they are the world mother of the Dharma. But be that as it may.
Yeah, it seems the second phrasing kind of it takes a more active stance on sharing, teaching, growing, nurturing, and the other feels more like it's kind of a static representative of that kind of unchanging truth in a state of acceptance. I like your phrasing better. It feels.
And again, the great earth here is a metaphor for the one vehicle, because the great earth supports all of these. You know, it's what's supporting all these vehicles, all the five vehicles is the great earth. And so the great earth, the one vehicle is not mentioned here except in the parable as it's the great earth. So now we go to the next one, which is also a great earth symbol. It is also like the great earth having a storehouse of four kinds of jewels. What class of service? The four, that which is the first are the invaluable, that which is second are the highly valued, that which is third are the middle valued, and that which is fourth are the low valued. These are called the great earth's storehouse of four kinds of jewels. So it is that by acceptance of the real Dharma, good sons and good daughters establish a great earth to attain for the multitude of beings the four kinds of superlative great jewels. What classes serve as the four? By acceptance of the real Dharma, good sons and good daughters are the multitude of beings who have not heard wrong Dharma and use the virtuous roots of humans and heavenly beings and then are conferred together with it. Those who seek as listener disciples and are conferred the listener disciples vehicle. Those who seek as the causally awakened one, conferred the causally awakened vehicle. Those who seek as a one of the great vehicle and are conferred the use of the great vehicle. So it is that for the multitude of beings who attain the great jewels, in every case it is caused by acceptance of the real Dharma, for good sons and good daughters to attain this virtuous merit by extraordinarily rare existence. Wool-learned one, that which is the storehouse of great jewels is exactly the acceptance of the real Dharma. So again, the storehouse of four kinds of jewels is the one vehicle that contains or stores the four kinds of jewels that are actually the five kinds of vehicles. Now this is interesting here. We have to look at this and I can't see it any other way, that they have this order of the four sort of inverted by saying the first is the invaluable jewels, the second are the highly valued jewels, the third is the middle valued jewels, and the fourth are the low valued jewels. Obviously, that's a very interesting thing if they're saying the bodhisattvas are low valued compared to the humans and devas vehicle as the invaluable jewel. So it seems to me that they've inverted the four examples, and that typically it would be the multitude of beings and devas who have not heard the wrong Dharma and have virtuous roots are basically the lowest kind of jewel, but still pointing out that they are a jewel, even though it's lower value, and that each one goes up in value. The Shravaka, the Pratyeka Buddha, and the those who are in the great vehicle, the Mahayana, are the invaluable jewels.
Is it possible that that's a broad-based turning on the head of value itself and asking us to kind of re-examine the fundamental, taking care of the one kind of scenario? The nurturing of the world actually might require, it probably isn't.
Well, certainly possible, and if this was a Zen text, I'd say likely. But
I don't. Yeah, it doesn't
sort
feel
of
like
the thing that Lin Ji would say when he said the five heinous crimes are liberation, sort of thing. But yeah, I don't see it specifically that way.
Yeah. This era of text tends to be pretty straightforward, and it doesn't do a lot of that kind of taking the thing and showing its opposite within itself.
Right.
Yeah.
But neither the Waymans nor Diana Paul make a note about this this order.
It's cool. Well, it stands in the sutra and it challenges me, so it's cool. I'll think about it, wrestle with it.
What's interesting, let's see, 12. Well, now here's interesting. Okay, so Diana Paul does have a note about this point. She refers to the Srimala commentary called the Gisho, which is, I believe, that's her shorthand name for the commentary by that fellow we talked about, Prince Shotoku, who had done a commentary on Queen Srimala, on Vimalakirti, and on the Lotus Sutra. I think I better double check later, but for now I think that's the reference to his commentary. And she says that commentary says The priceless is the bodhisattva vehicle. The supremely valuable is the prajeka vehicle. The moderately valuable is the shravaka vehicle, and the slightly valuable is the human and deity vehicle. So that early, very early 6th, 7th century commentary pointed that out. It didn't necessarily remark that it was interesting that it was reversed, but it just felt the need to point it out that that was the correlation between the two examples of the jewels. Now, interestingly, the first one had the great earth as a supporter of the burdens. This one has the great earth as where to find the jewels, where to dig up the jewels, where the jewels are stored within the great earth. That is, so all of these things are not only supported or upheld by the one vehicle, they're all actually found in the one vehicle as the great earth. And in every case, this is acceptance of the real Dharma. Going on to the next one, it gets a little, wait, where are we here? Okay. So then there's a little section. Wait, yeah. Okay. So there's a short section on the sameness of the real Dharma and those who accept the real Dharma. World Honored One, by acceptance of the real Dharma, those who accept the real Dharma are no different from the real Dharma. And as there is no difference from acceptance of the real Dharma acts exactly is acceptance of the real Dharma. So this is an interesting, very short bit, but it goes to the fundamental point of duality in the perceiver and the perceived, saying, don't look at this as the viewer and the object viewed. Don't look at this as subject or object, receiver and received, acceptor and accepted. They're one and the same, and this is repeated again later on. So even though it's just one short little long sentence or short paragraph, it is a very important reminder that we're not to be engaged in this observance or analysis or review or understanding of the acceptance of the real Dharma as an object separate from you, me, or any of those who do accept the real Dharma. Accepting the real Dharma and the person who accepts the real Dharma are both acceptance of the real Dharma. Okay, now we go to a long section, which again, remember, this is acceptance of the real Dharma is the same as the paramitas. Again, I said that this whole idea of acceptance of the real Dharma originally comes out of the Prajnaparamita Suttas, which of course had the emphasis on the paramitas. So again, this is to me a section of reassurance of those who have already accepted the Prajnaparamita, that this is not a new thing. This is an inclusive thing, not something new that is different from what they already know. So we have a formula here. World Honored One, there are no different crossings over and no different acceptance of the real Dharma. Acceptance of the real Dharma exactly is the crossing over. And again, that's I've discussed earlier, that crossings over is my literal figurative, concrete translation of paramitas rather than as perfections. Because after we cross over, you can be said to be on the shore of perfection, or in the act of crossing over, we are perfecting. But I like to remind us that the literal term paramitas means to cross over.
Does that relate anything to the Heart Sutra, that last line, where it's, gone, already gone on the other shore? Gate, paragate, parsangate, bodhisvaha.
Well, I see it as definitely a figurative, figurative of that. Yes, the gone
Beyond.
means gone beyond, means that's the crossing over. Gone beyond. It's not literal, it's not the same words, but I do also see it as the same intent and meaning.
Linguistically not the same, pointing towards the same essence. Cool.
Yeah, pointing towards what's going on with the paramitas, and of course the Heart Sutra is all about the prajna paramita as the vision of emptiness, or the manifestation of emptiness, and so that has to be seen in terms of the paramita conceptualization as crossings over. So if we look at this first one, by acceptance of the real Dharma, good sons and good daughters are those who are matured by the responsive use of giving. Maturation by use of giving goes as far as to renounce body, limbs, and joints. As they go on protecting those intentions, they then mature. Those actually matured multitude of beings establish the real Dharma. And this is called crossing over by giving, dana paramita. So again, I'm using this term crossing over by giving to really emphasize the process, that this is something that's done and it's a process. Because this description is all about that process.
Mm-hmm.
Good sons and good daughters are those, so here we go, good sons and good daughters are those who are matured. So when we see the term good sons and good daughters, it implies the matured. Now, this formula here is interesting. It has 4 parts. This paragraph has 4 parts in the formula, and it's repeated in every paragraph for each of the 6 paramitas. Matured by responsive use. The good sons and good daughters are those who are matured by the responsive use. And then there's the description of the mind that is the maturation process here, that is use of giving through the renunciation of body, limbs, and joints. Then third, as they go on protecting those intentions, they then continue to mature. And then fourth, those who are actually matured, those who actually get to the maturation, the fruit of that maturation is that they've established the real Dharma. And this is called the crossing over by giving. So that what's going on here is the emphasis that the paramitas are for establishing and the acceptance of the real Dharma in the world as a real thing, not as, and that's what's always been called the Bodhisattva vow. Not to do it for oneself, but to do it to be matured, to establish the real Dharma. So this interesting part, we mature by the responsive use of giving. I think I love this phraseology because it means, again, it's the call and response that the paramitas are not something we do on our, on our own. In basically, we don't do the paramitas on the zafu per se, except the fifth one, perhaps jhana paramita. But dana paramita is something we do 24/7 in the world. And we do it in response to beings where we say, oh, this person needs to have something given to them. This is that spontaneous, unsolicited friendship where we give people something. Here it has the giving. Again, we come back to the renunciation. This is not the renunciation of body, life, and belongings. This is just about the renunciation of the body. And it means to renounce the body, limbs, and joints. And that's just a way of, those three terms are just a way to say everything in our body, in the same way that Wu Men had all the pores, the bones and all the pores of the body. So we basically, and renounce again is a term that's broad enough to include equanimity in relation to, or non-attachment in relation to, or sometimes it's called indifference, or it just means not to, as I read it, this kind of renunciation is not to let our body get in the way of our giving, and that we will give our body for the good of other beings.
Pelicans will feed their young if they're starving on their own blood.
And then as they go on, the third aspect is to go on protecting those intentions. So that's the maturation process. That we're responding to beings with a giving mind and intention. And so we go on protecting that intention. And then we mature. And then when we are actually matured, that establishes the real Dharma. And this is called crossing over by giving. So the same formula then, let's see. I have, we established the real Dharma. The Waymans have installed in the real Dharma, that the multitude of beings are installed in. So they read the syntax of this, the Tibetans have the syntax of the sentence a little differently. They say that the multitude of beings are installed in the matured ones are placed in the illustrious doctrine. Okay. Oh, it's in the next one where they actually use the term installed.
Yeah.
It's interesting. In the first one, it says they are placed in the illustrious doctrine. And then for the following ones, they have installed in the illustrious doctrine. So I don't have a clue. And then later on they have on Protestant, they have matured. They abide in the illustrious doctrine. I don't know why the Tibetans have a different one.
They were placed or installed, huh? Yeah. And from Sila on, the Wylands do the
right. So Gunabhadra uses the same verb, establish, for each of those. So. And so I see it not that the beings are installed in the real Dharma, are put into the real Dharma, placed into the real Dharma. I see it that the maturation process itself establishes the real Dharma as the fruit of that maturation process. So that's why I've translated it that way on purpose. So then we go through each one, and there's a little, there's a variation. Each one has the formula, but then it includes something a little different as related to each one. So here, the responsive use of morality, sila. I could have, sila can be translated as morals, morality, ethics, or precepts even. I like the word morality. Just being a moral person is the most important part of this paramita. Their use of protecting the purity of the 6 roots, that is the 6 organs of sense, and the karma of body, mouth, and intention. We have body, mouth, and mind, or what do we have in our body, mouth, and thought? In our twisted karma.
Yeah.
Ancient.
From our body, mouth, and thought.
Right.
And sense sentences are actions, thought, body, mind, actions, thoughts, and body, mind, actions.
Actions, words.
And deeds. I mean,
thoughts probably. Thoughts are in mind.
Mind, right? Yeah, thoughts.
But I translate it as intention, because that's what karma is all about. Karma is not about just having a thought. It's a directed thought. Well,
it's interesting that also the term nen is often translated as thought, which
right.
is
the moment.
Translated as moment, translated as
right.
mindfulness. I mean, it's kind of weird, but
yeah. So we have protecting the purity of our sense organs. That is the purity of our 6 consciousnesses: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, or cognition. Keeping those pure by moral conduct, keeping our karma pure by moral conduct. But it also means, this is where the Lankavatara talks about each of these paramitas having 3 levels. One, the very concrete, mundane level, and then the 3rd level as the most profound, transmundane level. And here that would mean the idea of seeing that what we're seeing, what our 6 organs, our 6 roots perceive, is suchness itself, when our thoughts and thinking processes don't get in the way of realizing that. So also we're talking about the purity of karma, and goes as far as the 4 correct respect-inspiring postures. And then I have in the brackets, the 4 postures are, the 4 respect-inspiring postures are just walking, standing, sitting, and lying down. But the idea is that when we are protecting the purity of these, then they do become respect-inspiring or awe-inspiring. And as they go on protecting those intentions, they mature. That's the same. Those actually matured, established the real Dharma, and this is called the crossing over by morality.
It's interesting, the morality deal. Of course, it's completely subjective and it's a word, but I remember in a meeting we had at the many rivers, books, and tea meetings we have on Zoom once a month, twice a month. There were Jeannie, a student of Sasaki. She would say that morality doesn't exist in Buddhism. Ethics. You know,
That's Sasaki, all right. He just really went overboard with that kind of teaching.
yeah.
And,
Well,
and
you
so
know,
many,
practically.
many of his Oshos and ordained priests took it literally, and I think they didn't listen between the lines when they come up with a phrase like morality isn't in. John Tarrant, Danielle, you went up there to see him once with me, right?
Right.
John wasn't with us that time, was he?
No.
Okay.
No, yeah, no.
Was Bill Kwong there that time?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that was the time when Bill Kwong was there. I was there another time up there at Cobb Mountain with
John.
Sasaki was there and John came. And actually, John went and had tea with Sasaki after the Dharma talk.
Uh-huh.
And he came back and told the story. Oh, now I'm going to flub it. But it was something just like that he, John mentioned something about a Zen view. And
something about, what was that word? I missed that.
A Zen view, or
okay.
That's how we see it in Zen, or that's
right.
That's a Zen way. And Sasaki said, "There's no such thing as a Zen way." Just wiping it all out. So, and of course you can't say that's wrong, but if you establish that as a singular principle, then you've gone.
When I did sesshin with Shoro Harada at Whidbey Island, and I went to Doksan once, twice, and he wouldn't give me a koan. He says, "You finish your koans with Eiken Roshi, so just enjoy your sitting." And and about the third time I said, "I'll ask one more," And he said, "Well, in Buddhism, morality," I don't know if he used the word morality. Well, it was a translator there. It has been, the precepts have been neglected a little bit because of a reaction to the fundamentalism that also exists in Buddhism. So he says, why don't you sit with the 3 pure precepts as koans? And you probably have done that. So, and he went on, it was really beautiful when I came on with some kind of a presentation. He says, where does that come from? and I said something, there was a big candle next to him, and it was bright, and he wears orange. So I said something like bright. Where does that come from? And he says, I didn't say, I just said bright. He says, well, we have to remember our ancestors.
That's beautiful.
And everything that, it was quite lovely, But awesome. I remember him very specifically talking about the precepts of something that in the Zen tradition is neglected because of fundamentalism, that some of the, anyway.
Right.
That's a thing. And the other day when we were talking about morality but what do you mean morality? Morality is not part of Zen. Morality is something else. Ethics are part of Zen, but not morality.
Oh, yeah. I can't get into that business of saying.
No, I can't either. I think it's very slippery. It's very slippery.
That's like the people who say that reincarnation is different than rebirth. That's like, there's too much overlap to be able to separate them. Yeah, ethics, morality. Well, how can you have the 3 pure precepts without a sense of morality? Not to do the wrongdoing and to do the good. That's the definition of morality. Now, it doesn't give you a list of this action is wrong and this action is good, but it gives you that, it gives us
Well, you
that,
have the slippery slope there of like when there were all these scandals going on, some of the monks and one of the, no, it wasn't Sasaki's people, it was somebody else's.
Ada Shimada.
Right. Roshi lives in the absolute, and in the
Right.
absolute, there's not right and wrong. So we cannot apply the same rules for Roshi. Okay. Oops.
Yeah, that's so bizarre to me.
Nice work if you can get it, I guess. Wow.
Because, the point is, and I think this was part of even going to, if we want to go back to the beginning and go back to that teaching that is common to the five vehicles. That's what the morality teaching is all about. It's the teaching that's common to the five vehicles, that to each of us has a, you can say that some people grow up to be psychopaths or sociopaths because they're so damaged. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about,
Right.
absent that kind of specific damage, each of us has the intuitive understanding that goes all the way back to the root of the creation of the universe, that of the real Dharma has something we can appreciate, which is it's good to help people and it's bad to hurt people.
Except when it's not.
Right, except when it's not, because the doctor hurts somebody when they
Ahimsa.
ahimsa.
Don't you have a son named like that?
That's my son's name, Ahimsa, non-harm. So you can say that a surgeon harms somebody by cutting in to remove something, but we have to also realize, well, that's not exactly harm, because it's only a temporary harm that gets immediately stitched together again to remove the bigger harm. So, everybody kind of knows. I don't think it's only by our twisted karma that we can rationalize and justify the things that are not within our understanding of what's moral.
Yeah, and it does feel like there's places where, once you see that people are caught in causes and conditions, just like I'm caught in causes and conditions, the sense of agency over kind of like a moral justice or moral wrongness within the human because of their action does start to disappear, and it becomes more about teaching, guiding, and removing the suffering that's the causes, and allowing people to kind of come back to the kind of realigning with their fundamental. There's one of the sutras, I can't remember, has a great line about what do you do if you're talking with somebody who's committed a major moral act, and do you let them sit in the suffering of that, blah blah, and it's some version of like, relieve them of the suffering, guide them in the right act is kind of the thing. I think we have a tendency to look from the places of causes and conditions and define morality from that, rather than looking from the places of beyond causes and conditions and divining morality as an action towards wholeness and action towards oneness. Maybe I'm being too wishy-washy. I'm happy to take critique.
Well, it's an interesting statement, Mike. It's big. I think, I would like to take a look at it myself. Of course, by the time I'm finished speaking, I would have forgotten about exactly what you said, but I remember the gist of it.
Well, I would, it feels, I believe it enough that I would love to have reflection and challenge and the kind of the spiritual opening of debate or interactions that often happens.
Write it down, please, and send it to us.
Yeah.
Okay, as an email or something, or WhatsApp, something.
Okay.
I think it might be interesting. It'd be interesting for me. I would like to see that.
I'll see if I can. Yeah, we'll see if I'm brave.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah. You have to. You
You know,
won't say it exactly the same way, but you have the idea, you have an idea that it's worthwhile expressing.
So we have 4 more paramitas to review. Let's just do this next one and then stop.
Yeah.
Forbearance. Katana.
Okay. Shanti, Shanti.
So the second, in the 4-part presentation here, it's always the second one that gives the specific description. If the multitude of beings revile, blame, defame, disgrace, slander, or threaten them, that is the good sons and good daughters, then by means of a hateless heart mind, for some reason I put in heart mind here rather than just mind, probably because of the term hateless, meaning I wanted to remind us of that. Then by means of a hateless heart mind and enriching heart mind, and primarily the power of forbearance, they go on as long as it takes their complexion to be changeless.
Facial composure. That's great.
So that's forbearance, man. Whatever people are saying, I know I don't live up to that. Somebody cuts in front of me in the freeway and makes me have to slam on the brakes. I have a difficult time having a changeless complexion about it.
Aitken Roshi, I saw him a few times, and it looks like he did it often, It wasn't very subtle, but it was very, very much him, If somebody's talking and he's just sitting there in Sazen, he would go, I assume you're all seeing me. He would squish his eyes and mouth, like.
Yeah.
Facial composure.
Right.
Gone. I have such fondness for the man that I find it cute.
sweet.
This quickly and lastly compare the translation for so Diana Paul has neutrality in facial expression. Neutrality in facial expression. And I've got for their complexion to be changeless. And the Waymans have maintaining facial composure.
Right.
Right. So there we are. So I guess we'll stop there.
It's interesting because it's like it makes it look so physical, and patience is more than the physical expression. I mean, you could put a discomposed facial expression, and yet you know that it's just a habit, and you're not going to take that expression to court to condemn the person. You're going to just anyway. Oh,
that's right. And judges are supposed to do that as part of their job. But it is interesting that the physical composure, the physical equanimity becomes, if nothing else, a fake it until you make it approach.
Right. Yeah, that's a good one. Right. Yeah.
Of course, if all you're doing is faking it and you're forgetting about making it, then that becomes its own problem. But we go on, and I like this. My translation is we go on as long as it takes.
Well, and as a culture, the Japanese are very much aware of facial expressions, so they might really want to say no, but they're gonna go back up and down, going like that, and they actually are meaning no, 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 but they don't want to offend you. So it's a very interesting thing, and it used to be like they would never tell the patient that he had fatal disease because that wasn't right speech. It's changing. I've heard that it's changing in the culture, and the doctors will tell some people really the truth about their status.
Yeah, there's this Japanese word. I think I might be getting it wrong because it's been maybe a decade since I was looking at this. It's called ami or amai or something. I might not even be remembering the right word, but it means the adaptation to somebody else's, the anticipation of somebody else's emotional reaction and the adaptation to their needs without saying anything. I kind of see it in like Zen practice a lot, where I look across and I see somebody in a retreat doing something and they don't have to say nothing. I just do the thing that I can see that's needed. Or you step out of the way when somebody's moving, even though it's not the right thing for them to be doing on retreat. Or another one, like, as I know it from Southern culture too, where like in kind of a more collectivistic environment, you don't say the thing, people are supposed to notice, notice when you're hungry. And so like in a way, it's like, you notice that, Aiken was scrunching up his face, who he is, the intention beyond that, and you adapt to the isness of the other person. There's something kind of beautiful about that. So I could imagine some people would know that they were dying and it just wasn't spoken of. That's another layer to it. I'm sure it's not the only layer. I'm sure the layer you're talking about is a big one.
Yeah.
Okay, any other final comments before we close the session?
I'm going to practice with forbearance this week. Holy crap, that was intimidating and intense. I like it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, everybody. Well,
All right.
get a bell for that one.